business with other people's content. Sony is the poster child in the opposite direction of do you want engineers running movie studios necessarily. So it's hard for the hardware guys. You know, Samsung and LG and the people who are dominating tablet manufacturing and flat screen manufacturing, they're out there as device makers. It's hard to see them going into the content business successfully.
Pat, I think you were saying to me when we were rehearsing for this, is there's a whole new role for publishers, a whole new need for publishers, because there's so much data out there that's not curated or managed.
But you're still going to be left with the question, can you make a reasonable living? It's hard to imagine being able to do many $100 million movies. And if you look at the publishing business, for instance, it's hard to see that a lot of newspapers won't perish in this world, particularly smaller newspapers. And it's hard to see, for instance, that mid-list books, those serious books that don't sell but increase and enhance the culture, that those authors will be able to get the kind of advances to support them as authors.
So I'd like to answer a question.
Before you go, let's have Q&A from the audience. Go ahead. Go.
Just a quick one, because I think it's relevant to all of us, and Pat's a player here also, because the fact that these Titans exist, and you just asked the content question, and we just heard Adam, for example, say it's a good thing that these guys exist because more content will get created. I think what's really interesting is you might say that because these four guys exist, none of us get to create businesses. So we have a venture capitalist here, and I've raised money, and I've invested in a bunch of stuff. What's interesting is they don't own the world, so they're going to fight with each other. And sometimes the fights with each other are really helpful to the rest of us because it leaves some playing field and leaves some openness for us. But there are hundreds and hundreds of investments being made, and I think that's important, is for all of us, is you could get really scared that with one of these guys dominating and four of them being dominant. But interestingly, just like the old media companies don't do well with new stuff, these guys do better because of their DNA and because of the founders. But the new stuff, the really risky stuff, we're all still going to get to do. And that's good news.
And at scale, Google buys a company a week. Microsoft buys at least a company a month. You know, Yahoo and AOL, we've been reading about all this in the press. So it used to be the old media power players who were seen as the exits for all these VC investments. But when we look at the publishing that's coming along in analytics, in content management systems, in distribution tools, in advertising serving, in targeting, and so forth, there's a fifth player next to these big four, which is the venture ecosystem underneath is bubbling up all these great little companies, and some of the most successful categories right now are publishing tools categories to set people up to sell to the establishment later.
Okay, let's open up the Q&A to the audience, then we'll come back with the final question to the panel. Hands up. And can you state your name? John, we know you.
Hi, John Blossom, Shore Communications. And in terms of full disclosure, I just posted on Google Plus using a Chromebook. So I come with a particular point of view on this, perhaps. With that in mind, I guess the game in business is follow the money. And the growth in the global economy is not in the US, it's not in Europe, it's in Africa, it's in Asia, and it's in places where when I see my followers incrementing up in Google Plus, I see those people signing on. And that seems to me to be the real growth thing that people haven't been talking about here, and that's that the web has won. And the web will continue to win, be it on cross-platform in video, to mobile, to tablet, to whatever it may be. The web has won, and we're all scrambling to figure out how to get in the middle of that strategy effectively. And only one company out of all of those is really trying to nail that on a global basis for 7 billion people.
And that being is what, Google?
Google.
Yeah, well, yes and no. You're raising, to me, it's an interesting geopolitical question, in that China has not allowed any of these companies we're talking about, including Google, to have a meaningful success on the web in China. Fair point. And he said Android is in China, but Google search isn't, and that's where Google makes its money for the time being.
But these companies all believe that the future in terms of Asia, Africa, the developing world, it relates to smartphones and mobile phones. And because, in fact, what's happened in, say, Africa, where I was last year doing a story on mobile phones, they have bypassed the expensive infrastructure. And a lot of distance learning and everything else is being done on mobile phones, which are very inexpensive. So Android has some real advantages there. I agree with that.
Question?
Hi. Hello? Hello?
You're on.
I'm on. Okay. Hi. Scott Feldman, Susquehanna Growth Equity. Thanks for your comments. Really interesting discussion. I admit I've glanced at my mobile device during your talk, and it's called the BlackBerry. Is BlackBerry? Can we declare that device dead officially, or is there a comeback path for them?
Why don't you declare it right now?
He doesn't want to declare it, I think is his point.
I don't know, by raise of hands, maybe we can see how many people have that device in
I
here.
have a BlackBerry because I don't use a phone very much, mobile phone. I use it for email, and it's much more convenient. And I hate it. I hate it. So I would love to declare it dead because I've seen their browser stinks. I mean, I really hate the BlackBerry,
can I have it?
but I won't give it to
No,
you.
I don't want to give it
But
to
I
you.
have
Give
it.
it to me.
It's right here.
Give it to me. Give it to me.
Don't do it.
But it's a good question because I too have a BlackBerry, and you know, and my kids both have iPhones, but BlackBerries are liked by IT departments and by government officials, and they do other things particularly well. And as Apple and the Android guys build in better enterprise level security and better encryption and better provisioning, that will all go away, and we'll remember BlackBerry maybe like we remember Packard. But I wouldn't predict BlackBerry is gone in 6 months.
Since we're having one of these, boxers versus briefs moments here, I gave up my BlackBerry 2 weeks ago, approximately, maybe 3 weeks ago, in favor of an iPhone, and I did it because the web browsing on the BlackBerry is terrible. The camera on the BlackBerry is pathetic. I decided if I was going to be out promoting a book, I needed to take pictures and other things like that. The people I talk to who are visionary and know what they're talking about say game over for BlackBerry. In my opinion, they've got one more shot with their next product rev because of this allegiance that people like Pat and Ken and I hung on for what I felt like was a very long time. It's still a superior email device, and if they need to capitalize.
Now,
on
how do you like the automatic speller thing when they change your words? Doesn't that drive you crazy?
No, it doesn't. No, because it adapts. It does not drive me crazy at all.
It doesn't learn.
But let me try to make one thing that maybe puts this BlackBerry hardware device thing in perspective. Think of how much you could all buy a